welcome to another edition of the Simsbury Woman. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Shannon Knall, and we are lucky to have our guest with us this month as we talk about autism awareness. So please welcome Diana Yeisley, who is the New England chapter, or the Connecticut advisor to the New England chapter of the Board of Directors and the Connecticut Corporate Development Chair for Autism Speaks. Diana, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. We've had this program before in April, and we've talked about April as Autism Awareness Month. As a parent of an autistic child, I feel that it's an issue that we need to revisit as often as we can. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity to speak about it a little bit more and bring some awareness to the public. So let's start with your story. You're a Simsbury mom, parent to a child with autism. Yep. Let's talk about your road.
Yeah, first of all, I love that April is Autism Awareness Month, but as we families know, it doesn't go away once April is done. Autism is every day. Autism is every second. We're certainly aware, and Autism Awareness Month is not for us.
Right.
We are certainly aware Autism Awareness Month, as you know, is really for everybody else to learn a little bit more, to be a little bit more accepting and understanding of where we are in the autism world. My story, I have a currently 14-year-old son, teenager, named Carter, who has autism. We've been in this for a long time now, not as long as some others who have older children, but Carter was diagnosed about 2.5. We saw signs around between 15 months and 18 months for the first time, and shortly after he was 2 years old, while I was still pregnant with my second child, is the first time I ever heard the word autism in relation to my own child. I really didn't even know much about autism.
Right.
Of course, had seen the movie Rain Man,
Right.
which I now know is really, even if that is autism, that's just one specific portrayal of a very stereotyped category of autism. And I knew nothing about autism, but I clearly knew when I read this Time magazine article that what they were talking about certainly fit what I was seeing in my precious baby boy at that time. So shortly before his third birthday, around 2.5, we sought out an autism diagnosis because he was giving birth to 3 at the time for early intervention services, which is extremely important. But we knew he was going to be transitioning from birth to 3 to the school, and we wanted to know where we were on this journey, which I now know as autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
And he was diagnosed with classic autism. And he transitioned to the schools at 3 years old. And unlike most, families who have a preschooler, he started going to school full time.
Right, right.
Full day, very intense, really thorough program that he was in, which is, it's not just all playtime. It was so overwhelming for all of us, really, to have him in school full time. And here's this 3-year-old boy, and we're still trying to navigate and understand this new world that we're in. And it's amazing to look back now, 11, 12 years later, and see where we are and how much we've changed, he's changed, but things have changed. I mean, it's always something new. There's always something new in our world. I know autism up to now 14. I don't know what our road is going to lead. We can try to plan.
Right.
But, for Carter's improvements and milestones, there's always some new obstacle and something that he may have overcome one thing, or it may have just changed.
Exactly.
So that's a little, he has a sister, Sarah, who is 2 years younger than him. And really, Carter has autism, but autism affects all of us.
Right.
It really is a family, as you know, a family disorder. And, I just have the 2 children. Sarah doesn't know what life is like to have a typical sibling.
Right.
She does not know what it's like to have her older brother tease her the way a typical teenage boy might tease his sister, which is a somewhat blessing in disguise.
Well, right.
However, the burden that she's borne over the years of being overly responsible and trying to mother him, and I often have to remind her to just be a child, and that it's okay for him to get in trouble. you know, as long as he's safe.
Of course.
But, you know, it's unfair, the burden that she carries for it, but she knows nothing
Right.
else. And we as parents know nothing else.
Right.
I don't know what it's like to have a typical son.
Right. Right.
And, you know, people often say, I don't know how you do it. I'm not really sure how to answer that, because the simple answer is I don't have a choice.
Right.
This is not something I went to school for.
Right.
We've heard this often. This is not a job I chose to apply for.
Right.
This was given to me.
Right.
And we do the best we can.
Right. Well, a couple things that you touched on that I want to make sure people understand is that just because you know one person with autism simply means you know one person with autism. As you mentioned, autism is a spectrum disorder. It affects people very differently, just as you and I are different. The way that a person is affected by autism is different as well. So I think that's important. And, you know, when my son was diagnosed, you know, after Carter was, but I think then, you know, the statistics were not as prevalent as they are today.
Not nearly.
I think when Jack was diagnosed, it was like 1 in 250 or something along those lines. And now we're looking at 1 in 68.
It's unbelievable. I've told this story before, but I remember when I was pregnant, we had the Bible, you know, what to expect when expecting.
Right.
And I remember after I had both kids and I was going to get rid of the book, I decided to look up autism in the what to expect when expecting. And Carter was born in 2000.
Right.
So I looked up autism, and I had to find it in the back of the book.
I know. I did.
And there was a very short paragraph about autism, and it said that it's a very rare developmental disorder that affects approximately 1 in every 10,000 children. And it struck me because already, when I read it, the statistics were either 1 in 250 or, you know, 1 in 188.
Yeah.
But now, here we are, not really that much further later, 10, 12 years later, and you're looking at 1 in 68.
Right.
That is a tremendous jump.
Right.
And I always say, I don't understand, because if this was if it was an illness or children were being kidnapped at this rate, people would be up in arms.
Right.
This pandemic, this atrocity that is happening. Yet it just seems to be, oh, new numbers about autism, and it's their issue, and it's what's happening, and why is it so? I want acceptance for my child. I don't want these numbers to be accepted. Why is it just accepted that autism is rising and that these children, to be adults, have autism? But where's the cry? Other than from people like us, where is the community cry, the national cry for help and alarm over these very disturbing numbers?
Well, someone made the observation to me the other day that we have an epidemic with a non-epidemic response.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we're dealing with. And I know that you and I have certainly been jumping up and down about this for years and telling our policymakers and our legislators and our community that the numbers were going to be overwhelming and that these numbers were going to be of epidemic proportions. And our children were going to grow up. And we have no plan on the national level right now to deal with or address employment, housing, or care for our children, which is a terrifying place to be as a parent.
We don't really have a plan on a local level.
No, we don't.
And, you know, Carter's 14, over 14, and we are looking at what his high school and post-high school life is going to look like, and it's very scary. And although there's still a lot of ifs and there's still some planning to do, these years will go by very quickly. And you and I have spoken to many legislators and been on television and radio telling people there is a tsunami of children that will be exiting the school system within the next 5 years that have no plan for employment and housing and health care, and they will not be able to be on their parents' benefits any longer. And it is extremely scary. And I can worry about my child, but we're not the only ones in this boat.
No.
And I feel like a sinking ship sometimes.
I know. I appreciate that. And I think what's also alarming about these numbers is that the 1 in 68 reflects, for me, the time period when Jack was diagnosed. And I am challenged to think about having a conversation with anyone who has a child younger than me who is not very closely tied to someone with an autism spectrum disorder. So these numbers are going to get worse.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that we have changed the diagnostic criteria, I think we're going to go through a period where these numbers get worse.
Yes.
And I share your frustration. I don't know how we have allowed this to happen.
And, you know, I will also address right now that, yes, a certain percentage of the numbers can be, as you know, due to some better diagnostic criteria and earlier detection through pediatricians and science who have discovered ways to detect it earlier and earlier. But that really does not account for, that's just a small percentage, less than a third of the cases that in these numbers can account for better diagnostic tools. These numbers are on the rise.
Right. And I think to add, you know, just another fact to that is autism occurs at a higher rate than pediatric cancer, juvenile diabetes, and pediatric AIDS combined. And it still remains one of the most underfunded childhood disorders in the nation.
It's not only underfunded, but it's
not funded.
It's not funded. It's flat out not funded. But it's also does not get the attention, the appeal, the sympathy. And when people say, but the children aren't dying, I will challenge you to say that yes, they are. Because wandering and elopement is a serious problem in the autism community. One of the problems that we have with autism, because these statistics are on the rise, and for those children that are in those statistics, they're still children, we don't know true mortality rates for individuals with autism. We don't know what their life expectancy really is going to be. We do see tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. Safety issues. Safety is such an important issue. And for me personally, safety is a tremendous worry that I live with every day for Carter, as you know. And just community skills. Yes, he's got wonderful, wonderful living skills within his house, but community skills are almost zero. And that, whether that's safety in vehicles and understanding traffic, or understanding 911 and who is safe and who is not safe, and certain other dangers that could be out there for him. It is a frightening world for him, and I worry all the time, and therefore I'm tired all the time, because you know, whether he's not sleeping or I'm not sleeping.
Nobody's sleeping.
Nobody's sleeping.
Nobody's sleeping.
And you know, that's just another added stress. And I hate to use the word burden regarding me, but I don't know what other word to use, because yes, autism is a burden. Carter is not a burden. Carter's my son, who I love more than anything. Except for her, his sister. But autism is the burden. That's why I like to say Carter has autism, because he is also a person first.
And I think that brings us to a good place, because although, like you said, you and I are very aware of what autism is, I think it's there's still a lot of education that needs to happen in the public. So autism is, or April is Autism Awareness Month. So just to start things off and to bring autism to Simsbury, we are going to be lighting Eno Hall blue in collaboration with Autism Speaks, who will be, they are responsible for the Light It Up Blue campaign around the world. So we'll be joining historic landmarks across the country and around the world, actually.
Absolutely.
Just to, for the month of April, will be lit blue, and just to remind people that autism is in our community, and our families really need support.
Absolutely. And that is why I light it up blue. It's not, again, it's not for me. I light it up blue. I light my house blue. I have puzzle pieces outside on my lawn, and my light bulbs are blue. Not to show that, hey, my child has autism. Most people know. I'm very open about it. I'm very public about it. But it's it's to shine a light on, think about it for a second, learn something, not just awareness, acceptance, but also that solidarity that we need within our community. Somebody else can see that and know that they're not alone. Because ironically, as large as these numbers are, it is a very isolating disorder, very isolating for families, very frightening, especially new parents, young parents. It is extremely isolating. And I still isolate myself sometimes. You know, I've been in this a long time. As I said, as much as I'm out about it, when I'm having a hard time and when we're having a hard time as a family, you feel like you're the only one.
Right.
And it's amazing how even so many years later, you could still have that feeling. So lighting it up blue is also to show we are a community. Look at how big our community is. And we do need help. We need support.
Yeah, we do.
You know, it's not about awareness. I want acceptance and understanding. And, you know, I've worked with the middle schools. I've worked with the elementary schools. I'll be working with the high school next. You know, to understand it's not just one day of autism awareness. It's not just 1 month. These individuals, children, young adults, are in our community, and they should be part of our community.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about the young families who are just being diagnosed first, because I do remember, I call that the black hole of when Jack was first diagnosed, because it's tremendously isolating and overwhelming and confusing and sad and all of these things all at once. But let's talk about what support is out there for families. Autism Speaks has the first 100 days kit.
First 100-day kits. There's, to help you get through the first 100 days of diagnosis, it is customized to where you live. So if you register at the Autism Speaks website, register for your 100 days kit, they will send you one tailored to your community where you live for supports and doctors and groups and where to connect. But there's also other tools. We all know for young children, how difficult outings may be, whether it's to get a haircut, to the dentist, to go to the movies, to go to the restaurant. There are toolkits for these so you can learn tips and help how to manage these seemingly mundane everyday activities that become overwhelming events for our families. Sensory-friendly movies are tremendous. Something as simple as going to the movies is not something that without sensory-friendly movies our families would be able to go to at all.
We still can't go to the movies. Sensory-friendly or not, we still can't go.
We try. But and that's, you know, the importance of making sure that people are accepted in the community and at these places, that the judgment needs to stop.
Well, right. I think that, I mean, to add insult to injury, the judgment is really horrible. I think I've come to a different point in that, but in my early years, it was really difficult when my child was, you know, on the floor of the grocery store screaming or bolting away from me in the grocery store screaming, and to have people judge me on my parenting skills as a result was just crushing.
It is, and I also am still floored to this day that Carter wears headphones, and there is a reason. His sensitivity to noise happens to be human voices. And without his headphones, it often feels like people are yelling at him all the time.
Right.
He also likes the pressure that the headphones give to, you know, his system.
Right.
I'm still floored that people will be out in Walmart or in the Fitzgerald's or in the grocery store, and people will literally go up to him, lift the headphones, and say, "Hey, what are you listening to?"
Oh my gosh.
Thinking he's just some teenager.
Right.
And I can never say anything to them because I'm always busy focusing on Carter, making sure that he's okay.
Right.
Rather than replying to their ignorance.
Right.
I don't understand where people can't feel the need to judge or touch another child.
Right.
You know, it's not okay.
Right. Right.
You know, typical families don't want their children to be judged on the sports field or academically or whatever. Autism is not caused by bad parenting.
Right.
And when you see a child having a difficult time,
Right.
it is not a meltdown because there's attention seeking or being a brat or misbehaved. There's always a reason.
Right.
We may not know what it is, but
behavior is communication, or communication is
the behavior
is
because
communication.
they have no other way to communicate their frustration, their lack of being able to use their words and process the environment around them. It becomes overwhelming, and they often are in fight or flight syndrome.
Yes.
And when they want to flight, and we're making them stay there for safety reasons, then it becomes fight, and their whole world becomes a battle.
Right.
And people should not be judged. They're not giving me a hard time. They're having a hard time.
Right, exactly. There's a big difference.
There is a big difference.
And I think something that, I've been talking about recently along those lines is the difference between tolerance and acceptance.
Yes.
Tolerance is not acceptance. No. And I think they come from two very different places, and I think we need to really start breaking those two things down and helping people to understand what the differences are.
Absolutely.
Which is hard.
It is, and I said this to somebody the other day that, Carter does have friends in middle school now, sorry. But, somebody made the point that they just want their kids to be nice to their daughter and say hi. And I said, no, I don't want people to say hi to Carter and smile at him in the hallway just because he has autism.
Right.
I want them to be nice to him and friendly to him because of who he is.
Right.
Because he has a lot to offer.
Of course.
That's acceptance. Asking him to join, not because you've been told to,
right.
not because you're going to get a star because he's got special needs,
right.
but because he has something to offer,
right.
the lunch table or the basketball game right. or your science group,
right.
whatever it may be. Yeah, actually, for years in elementary school, Carter was often asked to be on the math group because they know he would always get all the
right.
answers right.
right.
But again, you want to accept him. Accept his difficulties,
right.
but accept him for who he is and enjoy what he can offer, his humor, the strengths that he does have. Just like every other child, every
right.
human being wants to be accepted for who
Absolutely.
they are. People with autism are no different.
Absolutely. That's an important distinction. So let's talk about Autism Speaks for a little while. And let's talk about what your work is with Autism Speaks.
Okay. Well, Autism Speaks is, for those that don't know, is the nation's leading organization for research, advocacy, and awareness and education for autism spectrum disorder. It's the largest organization in the world. And my role currently is the Connecticut advisor to the New England Chapter Board of Directors and the Connecticut Corporate Development Chair for Autism Speaks. I've been with Autism Speaks since the beginning here in Connecticut, formerly a different organization that you and I worked with,
right.
starting a walk when they merged with Autism Speaks. And in 2006, we had our first walk.
Right.
We are now coming up to our eighth walk.
Year. Yeah.
I lose track of time here. Our 8th walk. We now have 3 walks in the state of Connecticut, but our signature anchor walk is June 1st at Rentschler Field, Greater Hartford walk now for Autism Speaks. It has grown leaps and bounds, as you know. We started a couple of thousand people in Elizabeth Park, and now we are well over 10,000 people
right.
at just that walk.
Right. Which is always sort of a bittersweet day.
Yes.
Because we see all there's so much support and there's so much, of the community getting together, but that's indicative of how big the numbers are.
Right. There's a reason why there's
right.
10,000 people at just one walk.
Right.
And several thousand at the other 2 walks.
Right, right.
And why it's grown so much.
Right.
It is bittersweet. It's inspiring but sad.
It is.
And but at the walk, there's a lot of resources that you can come and get information and support and services, information about services. And it is a great day. It's also important to remember, I wouldn't be doing my duty as the corporate development chair, but it's also our largest fundraiser.
Right.
And the funds are needed.
Right.
And it's a fun day for families, but it's also important to remember that we do need corporations and families and individuals to raise money so
Right.
that Autism Speaks can continue
Right.
the important work that it's doing both on a local and a national level, whether it's advocacy. We need money to advocate, both for legislation as well as family advocates, for services. Grants that are given both to science as well as to families, camp grants and family grants, emergency grants for families in situations, but also science and research grants and school grants and education grants here we get a lot of money back here in Connecticut. We need the money for awareness, quite honestly. Awareness, we could talk about it, but we do need money to educate. We are still educating. I still cannot believe, I was at an event this past weekend, and it's a very large event in Boston, and the gentleman helping me with my bags up to my room was talking about, am I going to the event this evening? He's got tons of friends and people coming into town. They can't wait. And turned to me and said, but what is your puzzle piece for?
Oh, my.
And I said, well, this is for Autism Speaks, the event that is happening that this group was putting together.
Right.
And it still floors me to this day that people don't know what the puzzle piece pin is for. Do I like to do puzzles? Well, not particularly.
Right.
That
We
is
have a long way to go.
Yeah, education and awareness.
Right.
Everybody knows what that pink ribbon is for. You know,
Right.
we need to know what the blue puzzle piece is for.
Right.
That's why we light it up blue.
Right.
It's not, you know, because we like the color blue.
Right.
People need to know. We need to have people know
Yep.
what it means.
Yep.
So,
So we're going to try to wrap things up now. So if there were like 1 or 2 quick points that you can make that are important for people to hear on how to support families in town impacted by autism, what would you say?
be a friend. Be a friend. Understand that they may be having a really bad day, and they may need to listen. And as hard it is for people to say, "Oh, I understand," you don't unless you're living with it. And even my situation in autism is different than your situation
Right.
with autism.
Right.
I know my autism.
Right.
And we need help. Maybe take the sibling. Maybe give them a break. Maybe give them a meal. I mean, it's hard. But also that we are part of this community. And we want to be part of this community. And we want to do the things that other families do.
Right.
Without stigma, without judgment.
Right.
And of course, I want people to know to come to the walk.
Well, we will put the website address up on the screen so people can get some more information about the walk. And I think it's important for people to take time during the month of April, if not every month of the year, to learn about autism and learn that those numbers are actually people.
Right.
They might be neighbors, friends, family members, the person around the corner, but they're really, truly people.
And facts are facts. But Carter is autism. He has autism. He's one face of autism. I often say I am a walking puzzle piece. And I am an expert on autism to what I know.
Right, right.
And I do think that our community has come a certain way, but we have a long way to go.
We do.
And this is a great community, but it could be even better.
Right. I agree. Thank you, Diana, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your candid discussion about autism and for all the work that you do for Autism Speaks.
You too.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us. Take a moment during the month of April and any opportunity you can to learn more about the 1 in 68 children now impacted by autism. Thanks for joining us on the Simsbury Woman. We'll see you next time.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.